Hey, Chris Parker here, back with another episode of Parker Points. Today we're going to talk about making a plan. And, we always talk about having a plan, writing it down. A lot of the stuff we do and try to get out there for coaches and ADs is to help them make their plan. But, we don't really talk about what the plan entails or how to make a plan or what are you looking for? We just say, we just kind of give advice. So today I want to specifically talk about how I think you can make a plan to help your team get better. So if you're listening to this, I think you can get something out of this to help your team make a better plan. And so then we're going to take the next several episodes and talk about maybe specific areas and how to do that. But today's going to be general about how you can make a plan. You need a plan for these things. And I think this is true regardless of sport, but you need a plan for player development. You need a plan for your developing your coaching staff, whether it's one person or 10 on your coaching staff. You need a plan to develop them. You need a plan for how do you handle booster clubs and parents. You need a plan for practicing. You need a plan for games. You need a plan for your scheme to be your offense, defense, stuff like that. And then you need a plan to develop the whole program, which is involving like sub-varsity teams, JV, freshman, middle school, youth, whatever responsibilities you have with those kind of teams. So I don't think anything so far has been earth-shattering, but you say, well, okay, we need a plan for that. That's pretty obvious. How are you going to make a plan that's a real plan? Because I think most people say things like, we want to get after it, or we want our practices to be efficient, or we want our teams to play hard on game day. Everybody does that, right? Nobody's ever said, I don't want to be tough, and I don't want to play well on game day, and I don't want to have efficient practices. Like, nobody's ever said that. So what we really want to talk about is how can you come up with a real plan to be better at these things. So I've kind of thought about it in these three ways. You want to come up with a plan, you need these three things in each plan. So you need a vision, you need methods, and then you need an assessment. So you need to ask yourself, what is my vision? I mean, how do I want this to look? In a perfect world, what do I want the booster club to look like? Then you think, what do we have to do to get that booster club there? And then you say, how am I going to know if this is working? How am I going to know if the booster club's getting where I want them to get? If you write down those three things, the booster club will get better if you actually do them. And you take what we talked about, somebody saying, we want to be tough, we want to be physical, whatever the word. Okay, well, so your vision is you want to be tough. You want a team that's very physical. How do you go about being physical? Well, you're going to have to figure out some ways in your practice schedule and how you do your off-season conditioning, whatever, to try to make this team a little more physical. And then you're going to know, how's it working? Well, if we go out there and maybe something as simple as fourth quarter first downs, or I don't know, you come up with something and you say, is this working? What does it need to change? Is it not? If we get to this, we're going to change how we do toughness. If we get to this, we know it's working, whatever. You take what we do with Parker Resources, kind of quit coaching, quit being an AD, and started focusing on this as I moved into HR director role. And, you say, well, what's the vision? Well, the vision was, I thought there wasn't a ton of professional development for coaches, or things that coaches could get that was real, that, would for real help coaches, help people become head coaches, help people be successful when they become a head coach. And, we just want to create as many things possible to help coaches. Well, what's the method? Well, we created a podcast. I'm doing this. Those are things that are free. Anybody can listen to the podcast. Anybody can watch this YouTube channel, and they can see things that can help them get better. I also wrote a couple of books. We developed an app. So that's our methods. That's how we're going to get to be in this place where coaches can go and get better. Is it working? Well, how do we know if it's working? Well, the beauty of that kind of business is we can tell who's watching, and we can tell who's listening to podcasts. Podcast has been really well. This channel is still growing. It's not quite as many people listen here, but on the podcast, people listen a lot. And then, of course, the books have been selling, and people are downloading the app. They're doing things. So, I mean, that's how we can tell that's probably working. And then if that stops changing, if people stop listening to podcasts, if we don't get people as interested in the products we're trying to put out there, then we know we got to change something. So even as something as simple as what we're doing in our business, you can take that same method. So how does this pertain to you? You look at the same thing, like actually ask yourself those questions. What is my vision for blank? So let's talk about player development. We're not going to talk about these categories today. I'm probably going to do a whole another episode of these on each one of these topics. So we'll talk about player development in a whole topic, but take it but now, like when your strength conditioning program, what is your vision? What do you envision that looking like? How are you going to make it look like that? What are you going to do? Don't just say it. What are you going to do? What's the methods? And then how you going to know if it's working? Maybe in that case, it's testings or whatever, Same thing with your mental and emotional plan, which is team building, social media presence, your award systems, your chance to make it fun, your player leadership, your academic tracking, your college recruiting. You need to think about for every one of those, what do I want it to look like? How am I going to get it there? How do I know it's working? So if your plan for academics is, I want everybody on the team to have this, I want everybody on the team to, have a certain GPA or this percent of the people have a 3.0 or higher or whatever it is. That's your plan. How are you going to get there? Well, we're going to track them. We're going to figure out when they start slipping. We're going to know ahead of time. What's your assessment? Well, it's pretty obvious. We're going to, at the end of the semester, we got numbers, grades. We're going to figure it out. Did we reach that goal? Did we not? Do we really have an academic plan that is in the vision that we wanted originally? That nobody, and this is kind of the key to this, guys. Some of this stuff is pretty obvious. I'm just trying to organize the thoughts so you understand how to make it better, because I don't think anyone is on purpose messing this up, but I think a lot of people on accident are messing this up. They say they want to, do this. They say they want to be great at promoting players to college. Just saying it's not good enough. What's your plan? What's your method for doing that? So that's what's got to happen. Look at the next topic, coaching staff. What's your plan for coaching responsibilities, for leadership on the staff, for hiring and retaining people? What's your plan for having meetings, for scouting, for development? And then how are you going to get there in each one of those categories, and how are we going to know if it's working? You take each one of those, and like I said, we'll have a whole nother one of these at some point, and I'll go through each one and tell you a little bit. But now I just want you to think in the general sense of, what is my vision for these topics? How are we going to get to my vision? How am I going to know if it's working? That vision, methods, and assessment method. Booster Club, same way. Parents, the community, these are all people you got to have a plan for. What's my vision for working with the basketball coach? What am I going to do to get there? Me and the basketball coach got to get along. How am I going to get there? And then how do I know if I'm getting along well with the basketball coach and it's actually working, or do I need to do something different? Those are questions you ask yourself, and I would actually write the answer down. Practices, what your practice look like. We don't like before practice, during practice, after practice. This is really where organization can make and break you. Game days, what do you want like before games, after games, home and away? Same thing. What's your vision? What methods are you going to use? How are you going to know if it's working? The scheme. And I'll tell you something simple. In football, everybody wants to score points to stop people. But don't get caught up in that. Come up with a scheme that fits your team, that's unique. But most importantly, have you a vision of what you want? Have some methods how you can get there and how you can assess it. Like for us, we would use, and I'll give a whole episode on this at some point, but we would use something called efficiency to determine what was working on offense and defense. So we get a certain, level of efficiency from a play. Basically, every play was a yes or a no. We get a certain level of efficiency. Was it a good play? If it's 3rd and 1 and it got 1, it was a good play. It was 2nd and 8 and it got 1, it was not a good play. So what plays were efficient, what plays weren't? If we could get a certain number, we knew what we were doing was working. And if we weren't, it wasn't. On special teams, our net punt versus their net punt, real simple. We wanted to be the better punting team. We want to have a better punt and a better punt return than the other team. How do we judge that? Well, that was our vision, our method. How are we going to get there? Well, we practice punt this way, and we kind of find as many different ways to be efficient in our punt practice and put good players out there. And then the assessment was really that net punt. I mean, if we're punting at 40 yards with no return, they're punting at 45 yards, but we return it back 10 every time on average. We won. Net punt, our punt versus their punt return, and their punt versus our punt return, who gave up the most yards? That's real simple. If it was working, we kept it up. If it wasn't working, then we looked at some different methods. We went back. We didn't necessarily change our vision. We went back to the methods and found a new method. Because I think one of the points I'm trying to get across here is, when do you know it's time to change something? Well, when it's not working. How do you know it's not working? Because you think so, or because you feel so? Like, give yourself an actual way to analyze if it's not working. Have an actual plan for assessment for your total program, junior varsity, freshman, middle school, youth. For me, that was easy. Our vision was for them to play the next year. Our method was to make it fun for them, enjoyable, be as successful as we could be. You win a lot of games, people want to play. And, most importantly, make it fun for them, win games, have a positive experience. Those are the things we came up with methods. And then the assessment was really just the retention rate. What level of, how many seventh graders played last year versus how many of those kids are still playing in the eighth grade? How many eighth graders played last year? They're still playing in the ninth grade. And, we wanted those retention rates to be probably around 90%. We wanted almost everybody back. It's probably impossible to assume everybody would be. But we wanted to know, I wanted our coaches to know, our JV coaches, our middle school coaches, to know what that retention rate was. It was their job to get as many of those kids to play the next year as possible till they got to varsity. And then it was really about more about just playing ball. And we didn't want to run them off, but we also didn't worry too much about it when they got to about 11th grade. But until then, we wanted them playing the next year. That was our assessment. So you got to think about what's your vision, what's your method, and what's your assessment. I'm not telling you to do it like me. I'm just giving some examples so you understand what the point of this discussion is, which is coming up with a realistic plan. We want a real plan, a plan you can actually do. I would take all those topics I just listed, write them down. What's my vision? What I want it to look like? Write it down. Even if it's handwritten or typed or whatever. What is your vision for that? What are some ways we can get to that? How am I going to know if it's working? Then you take all those methods and you put it in some kind of annual calendar. You come up with something that's events for this month, events for next month, events that I do every day, something, whatever. And you come up with something. We put calendars out all the time that we use I use as a head coach and AD. So do something like that. Make you a list, a running to-do list of what has to happen to make all those methods become things that help your vision. If you can do that, you're going to have something. So maybe just start with one thing. Just start with one thing. Pick one thing. Say, this is my vision for it. This is how we're going to get there. This is how I'm going to test if it's working. Then actually do it. Test if it's working. If it is working, great. Keep doing it. If it's not working, I go back and find some more methods. It's really that simple. So think of these categories. And what I'm going to do probably over the next several weeks is pick each one of these and do a whole separate segment on each one where we can really get more into the detail on what are some things you're really looking for in each one of these topics. You want to be a successful head coach. The last couple of episodes of this was talking about getting a head coaching job. You want to be a successful head coach. It ain't just about getting a job. You got to be good once you get a job. And these are the things that you can develop plans and keep evolving these plans, because keep in mind, the plan's going to change. It can always change. It can change annually, it can change every 5 years or whatever. And sometimes they can change during the season on the fly. Into things like COVID. Things can change. So it's okay that the plan can change, but you need to have a plan for these things. So next couple of weeks, we'll go through some of these, try to make it fun for you, and give you a little more info about each topic. I hope that made sense on how we would develop a plan for those things. And now next time we can get more into detail on the specific parts of the plan. But keep your vision, figure out what you want, find out how you're going to get there, and how you're going to assess it. Hope everybody got a little something out of that. You can find us on parkerresource.org. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe to YouTube. We got a podcast in this YouTube channel, obviously, that's free every week. Try to get something out at least every week if we can at one of them. And a lot of weeks we have episodes in both of them. You got the app, and download the app at parkerresource.org. And either one of our books, I think, are helpful and have proven to be helpful to coaches and ADs across the country. So if we can help you in any way, please contact me. Let us know if there's any thing you see on these episodes that we can do better to help you or help you understand. Feel free to reach out. We're doing this really so we can help coaches. No other reason. So let me know what we can do to help you. Hope everybody has a great day.